Why do people consider sumo deadlift cheating? And do you? Well, they consider it cheating because it is cheating.
You don't have to lift the bar as far. I mean, it's just, I feel like it's such an inherently easier movement when you just widen out your stance and you take off 6 inches of range of motion. Absolutely. Of course you're gonna be able to lift heavier weight. If you're like a fucking real man, you're gonna be pulling conventional.
Let's say you have a 700-pound sumo and then you have a 700-pound conventional. 10 times out of 10, I'm gonna be way more impressed with the conventional pull than I ever am of the sumo.
Hey, sumo isn't cheating, Chris. Simple. Sumo isn't cheating. Say it.
Sumo is cheating. Sometimes.
Trainer Tom, welcome to success. And I am on your screen today because I want to squash one of the dumbest of all of the fitness debates that there is, if you ask me anyway. And that is whether or not the sumo deadlift is cheating, which I believe it is objectively not. But before I get into the main points, there's 2 points I gotta get out of the way up front. First point, I am not coming at this from the perspective of a power lifter. I'm not a power lifter. I'm just somebody who loves to work out. And number 2, I'm not coming at this as somebody trying to defend the only deadlift that he's good at. I love all the deadlifts, and I do all the deadlifts, and I believe that there is a benefit to each deadlift. The sumo deadlift just happens to be the most different. So much so that I would almost argue that it's a completely different lift. But it's technically a deadlift because a lot of the same rules apply. So when talking deadlifts, you got straight leg deadlifts, Romanian deadlifts, you got a hex bar or trap bar deadlift, and you've got the sumo and the conventional. And we're gonna be focusing on the sumo and conventional for this video because that tends to be where the debate stems from. And this argument really stems from the fact that yes, when performing a sumo deadlift, the range of motion is going to be decreased a little bit. But that is only one variable to consider in this debate. Okay, so what makes a deadlift in the first place? Well, it involves taking dead weight and then sticking that dead weight between your hands, your grippers, and then using primarily your posterior chain musculature to lift that weight. And that means the back, the glutey booty, and the hamstrings. Now, depending on which deadlift you do, different muscles are going to be emphasized over others. And again, when looking at the sumo deadlift, it's arguably the most different. Because when it comes to most deadlifts, you're going to be about hip width apart with the legs and feet. And you're going to grab right outside of the legs. Butt out, chest up, strong, sturdy core. Woo! That's the conventional deadlift. But the sumo deadlift, on the other hand, again, we're going to decrease the range of motion a little bit because we are going to widen the stance as though we are a sumo wrestler about to wrestle this barbell. So when you are in your starting position, you're going to want about a 90-degree bend in those legs. And you want the toes to be pointed at the edge of the plate.
I'm Spider-Man.
And then, of course, you're not going to be grabbing outside of your legs. You're instead going to be grabbing about shoulder width apart. Woo! That's the sumo deadlift. So yes, there is a decrease in the range of motion because of the widening of the legs. But when I measured for myself, it was only like a 2.5-inch difference between the conventional and sumo deadlift as far as the range of motion goes. But you may also notice that this widening of the legs is going to require a certain level of mobility that is not required for the conventional deadlift. And the other thing too is because of the nature of our positioning, we're going to be emphasizing different muscles. So we have a lot more adductor help, as well as a lot more quadriceps involvement. Alrighty, coming at you from my good side now so you can see a different angle of our deadlifts. So conventional, we're going to be a bit more over the weight, as you can see, and that's going to require more work from the spinal erectors. Wham, bam, boom. Ha! And for the sumo deadlift, we're a bit more upright. We're still over the weight, but again, more upright, so that's going to require a little bit less involvement from that low back, but again, placing more stress on those adductors. Yeah! So as you can see, they are both deadlifts. They both involve lifting weight from the floor, using the grip, using primarily posterior chain muscles, but there is very key differences just in the way that the stance is set up that's going to influence what muscles are working more, what level of mobility is going to be required from one deadlift to another. So to say outright that the conventional deadlift is harder and therefore the more legitimate lift is just not fair, and it's also just not true.
Every single person that says that sumo deadlift is cheating are people who lift more doing conventional. And so isn't that a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy where you're saying, yeah, sumo's cheating because you in fact can deadlift more using conventional. But if you knew if you switched stances you could lift more, wouldn't you in fact do it? And so it stands to reason that some body types are better suited to pull sumo while others are better suited to pull conventional.
But the other point is, why does it even matter? If the sumo deadlift feels better for somebody and allows them to perform a deadlift, I want to encourage that because that's my main role out here in regards to my mission as a promoter of fitness is to promote fitness. And the sumo deadlift, again, as far as I'm concerned, is completely legitimate, and it's a great way to build overall strength. As a matter of fact, I attribute deadlifting in general to being one of the main things that developed my back. And that very much includes the sumo deadlift because that is a lift that I have maximized over the years. But let's back it up and let's focus in more on that range of motion argument. Because if we're gonna get hung up on the sumo deadlift being cheating because the range of motion is diminished, I think we gotta look at a lot of other lifts as well. Okay, so let's start by looking at the bench press. Fantastic upper body compound movement. And we're using a straight bar, nice and wide with the hands. Bam, boom. But wait, is that cheating? Because you know what? I can increase the range of motion by bringing my hands closer together. Now, is this more legitimate than the lift I performed prior? But wait, there's more. Is a straight bar cheating? Because you know what? Cambered bars exist. See this bend here? This allows the lifter to get a deeper range of motion when performing a barbell bench press. Now, if we're gonna say that the sumo deadlift is cheating simply because of a reduction in range of motion, I do believe the same logic would apply when comparing a straight bar to a cambered bar. How about the push-up? A classic exercise, but clearly it is cheating. Cheating! Because of the floor. The floor is stopping my range of motion. Cheater! Cheater! If you can't add a deficit to your push-ups to increase that range of motion, then why even bother? Hey, look at me. I'm a cheater. You know why? Because I am performing a regular seated biceps curl with my dumbbells, knowing very well that if I increase the incline on my bench, that I can deepen the stretch on my biceps, making the movement much more challenging. All of you non-incline curlers are cheating. Oh gosh, fellas and fillettes, we've come full circle back to the deadlift because you know what? I do think a regular conventional deadlift might be cheating because you can always add a deficit and therefore increase the range of motion. Hi. Okay, so in conclusion, yes, those were joke examples. No, I don't think that using a straight bar on a bench press is cheating compared to a cambered bar, or that, regular dumbbell biceps curls are cheating compared to inclined version. But I do think that it makes a great point in regards to this argument that sumo deadlifting is cheating specifically because of a reduction in range of motion. Because there's a lot of variables to consider. Life is not black and white. I don't do this whole black and white thing. The only thing that's really black and white in life is math. 2 + 2 does equal 4. But otherwise, life is nuanced, and we need to acknowledge the nuance in life because nuance is beautiful. And we are all individuals. We all have differences with our body mechanics and the way that our limb lengths and all that jazz. It's not going to be a one-size-fits-all. And I would hate for somebody to never even try the sumo deadlift because they heard that it's cheating, when the sumo deadlift may be a fantastic way for this individual to perform a deadlift. If I had it my way, everybody would do all the deadlifts because they're all beautiful, each and every one. And you know what? I might be a little bit addicted to deadlifting, but that's neither here nor there. At the end of the day, if you just pick one, maybe two deadlifts to perform, and you get a lot of enjoyment and you feel the benefit, that's fantastic. You're doing great. Another consideration to make, and this is sort of a personal thing, but I'm a bodybuilder and practice Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Those are pretty much my two main areas of focus. And in regards to the Jiu-Jitsu point in particular, sumo deadlift is great because, well, deadlifting in general for Jiu-Jitsu is great because it's going to require that grip strength and, the posterior chain strength in order to sort of control your opponent. But the other nice thing about the sumo deadlift is that we get the adductor engagement, and adductors are very important for a position known as the closed guard. Pretend there's a person in between my legs right now, and you gotta keep them in there with your strong adductors. So yeah, again, great carryover when looking at that sumo deadlift. Anyway, this is all just to say, don't let that one bully, the one, don't let that person tell you that you are cheating or that your lift does not count. Because at the end of the day, as long as you're using good form with whatever lift you're performing, you're going to be in a good spot. Enjoy your fitness. That is one of the most important keys to success with your fitness.